we might say that these times are frightening in many ways, but also to look at all the groups that get together and to look at all of you on a bright Saturday afternoon here to discuss about what to do about the problems with our democracy gives me and should give all of us hope. Now, my parents both came here as refugees. My father in July, actually arrived on August 3rd, 1939 from Berlin at the age of 6 on a boat. He went past the Statue of Liberty on his way to arrive in New York Harbor. My mother came at the age of 8 in 1948 from Warsaw, Poland, also on a boat in steerage, also past the Statue of Liberty. I take my own children now past the Statue of Liberty on the Staten Island ferry and tell them about that story. And my mother takes her grandchildren on that boat. It's very important to our family. Growing up then, I had a narrative of the United States. My parents were very grateful to this country. On the other hand, when I grew older and I talked about my parents' experiences in Europe, my father took me aside, I think at the age of 12, 13, or 14, some age sufficiently old enough to get it and sufficiently young enough to be traumatized for life by his words. And I would talk, and he said, Jason, he read me, Jason, here you are not the oppressed one. We are not oppressed here. And he read me James Baldwin's 1967 piece, Negroes are anti-Semitic because they are anti-white. And in it, Baldwin talks about how black Americans, how white Jewish Americans, of course in Chicago I would never forget Beth Shalom and the legacy of African American Jews in the city, but white Jewish Americans coming from Europe who came to America to be freed from persecution. Baldwin talks about how they think, he says, you think that you identify with us because of our shared history of oppression, but essentially Baldwin says, we resent you more because we know you're glad not to be us. And that's what my father told me, and he said, you must never forget that this country was built on a foundation of white nationalism. And that foundation of white nationalism was there when we arrived. And he told me about the America First movement. Here is a quote from Aviation, Geography, and Race, an essay published in that most American of journals, Reader's Digest, by Charles Lindbergh. It is time to turn from our quarrels and to build our white ramparts again. This alliance with foreign races means nothing but death to us. It is our turn to guard our heritage from Mongol and Persian and Moor before we become engulfed in a limitless foreign sea. Again, we face an America First movement. We face a movement that proudly identifies itself with these terms, these vocabulary, and this vocabulary, and all but names white nationalism as its creed. So this is my concern. But I don't want to say, I'm not here to say that this is some unique thing. We misunderstand what we face if we think this is not us. This is what we will always face in the United States. Our history of white nationalism is our founding sin. And our country is a project to respond to white nationalism. And we have responded in the past. I mean, the heroic work of the Freedom Riders, the Civil Rights Movement, this is an ongoing process. And we face yet another epicycle in this ongoing process. And it's not a reason to give up hope or give up faith. Of course, and we must remember in facing this, when we talk to our children and our grandchildren, we must tell them, fascism is not some foreign thing. Hitler, in Mein Kampf, praises the United States as his model, as his incomplete model for the nation he seeks to build, for the racial nation he seeks to build. My colleague Jim Whitman's book, Hitler's American Model, describes in detail how Hitler took the anti-miscegenation laws as his basis for the Nuremberg laws. In Hitler's second book, he talks about how he praises our legacy of indigenous genocide and settler colonialism. He says, "Who anymore speaks of the Red Indian?" So he praises the 1924 Immigration Act, which former Attorney General Jeff Sessions praised as well, which was explicitly designed to rule out all non-white immigration, including Southern European immigration. So we were, in many senses, a model for fascist movements, in particular German fascism. And we must not, and I'm not here to suggest, so that should both raise fear and comfort us, because we have not experienced German fascism here, although our black population has, has experienced something, not like that, but it has experienced enormous discrimination, massive over-incarceration. So I don't want to minimize that. But when I talk of fascism in what follows, I want us to remember that it's not some overwhelming thing that we can't overcome. It's rather a demon that America has always faced. It's rather our struggle. Sorry. And we faced it down before. There's something about liberal democracy that makes us think when you make progress that there's not going to be regress. But unfortunately, we have these structural problems, and these underlying structural problems will make it the case that when we have an Iraq war, when we have a financial crisis, when we have failures of elites, we will always have people returning to a mythic past, to think that maybe the problem was going in this direction in the first place, and maybe we should go back to this wonderful past before we gave the people at the fancy universities power over decisions. So unless we face these structural problems, underlying structural problems, in times of crisis, in times when people see the elites as having failed them, and rightfully so, there is a significant possibility, as history tells us, that they will they will be seduced by demagogues. So let me turn now to the structure of fascism as I see it, and what it is as an ideology and a politics, and why it's so dangerous. And I'm going to lay out the character of fascist tactics, using some of the extreme examples. And of course, my goal here is, I'm not saying we live in a fascist state. We don't. Otherwise, I couldn't be giving this talk. But it's not how I understand fascism. I understand fascism as a set of tactics that is there that people use to divide a population so one person or a party can seize power. Hannah Arendt in Origins of Totalitarianism warns of moments when people prize party over parties. And what she means by that is moments where people have allegiance to a political party over a multi-party system, democratic system. And she says, these are moments of great concern. When people, if you had a country where there were members of the party who, rather than caring about the democratic institutions and keeping a vibrant opposition alive, cared about their party running everything. Yeah. These are dangerous moments. Loyalty to party over parties is a signal that you're losing our democracy. And before I enter into these strategies, I want to say that should make us all be aware that we don't want to make the same mistake. A democracy is a system where there are people with fundamentally different values living together. And so, if we meet the challenge that faces us, we cannot end up by alienating those of our fellow citizens that have different religious beliefs than we have. That social conservatives, for instance, libertarians. You know, I'm not a social conservative or a libertarian, but they belong in a democracy too. We cannot make the same error that is being done to us, of people grabbing the reins, of seeking to grab the reins of power. A democracy is a lot of people with different views and different backgrounds living together. And when you tilt in an anti-democratic way, it's a method to eliminate that. To have one group's traditions, one group's identity, be the nature of the country. So in my book I lay out 10 tactics for underlying fascist politics. Now, so many people think of fascism as a set of beliefs. I don't think of fascism as a set of beliefs. I think of it as a set of tactics to gain power, because fascism is about power, fundamentally. Democracy is about liberty and equality. Fascism is about power. And there's always been a tension between power and liberty and equality. So let me lay out, before I begin fascism, we're talking about fascism, let me just quickly say something about democracy. Democracy is based on these two ideals, liberty and equality. Both of these ideals rest on truth, on the centrality of truth. Liberty rests on the centrality of truth, because you're not free if you're just filled with lies. Nobody thinks the people of North Korea are free, right? Because they've been lied to. People in Putin's Russia believe that I don't know what they believe, but they're not tracking the truth, and Putin is very popular, because when you're not tracking the truth anymore, it's all about power. Liberty, but you're not free if you're acting on lies that someone told you. And equality requires truth. Equality requires truth because equality, political equality, is speaking truth to power. The idea behind political equality is that if someone lies, someone less powerful than them can say, "You're lying," and they'll be embarrassed. So if you want to get rid of political equality, you get rid of people's respect for the truth. You make it the case that in the public square, you can lie and someone can catch you and it won't matter. And then you undermine political equality, because the only way someone much less powerful can embarrass someone in that way is by catching them, saying, "No, you're lying, this is the public domain, we're talking about what's happening, you can't be lying." So if you want to eliminate political equality, you eliminate truth. So fascism fundamentally seeks to replace truth by power. But it's a particular method of doing that. So the first tactic is to create, let me begin with the name of Hitler's book, which is helpful to think about the ideology. Hitler's book is called My Struggle. Now, why is Hitler's book called My Struggle? The ideology of fascism is that value comes from victory in a struggle. If you win, if you're a winner, you have value, and losers have no value. So fascist ideology, they don't like losers. They only like winners. Winners have value. If you're wondering why this ideology is dangerous, think of the Nazi T4 program, the gassing of the disabled. Because, if it's all about winning and domination. So liberalism does not attach value to winning. So underlying fascist ideology is this view that value attaches to victory in the struggle. But it's not individual victory in the struggle. In fascism, you say there are these great challenges which individuals alone cannot meet. Only groups or nations can meet them. So in fascist ideology, you say there are certain nations that have proven their greatness over time, or certain races or certain religions that have proven their greatness over time. And that greatness must be reclaimed. And life is a struggle between national groups, and we have to return to that struggle and win. And that's why Hitler's book is called My Struggle. It's really our struggle, the Aryan struggle. So the first tactic in fascist ideology is to appeal to a mythic past, a certain kind of mythic past. Now, all nationalism appeals to an imagined shared past, but it's completely innocent to talk about, yeah, there were some sheep farmers over there and some cow herders over there and we all spoke French. That's fine. What's not fine is when you say, we were great, we dominated, we ruled, and then the foreigners came and the liberals came and made us feel humiliated about ruling. That's a different kind of mythic past. When you talk about how your nation dominated other nations and had an empire and has been humbled and humiliated, and you use that as a method to connect people's anxieties about the economic situation, to make them feel that their anxiety is due to nostalgia for a past that never was, then you're using a fascist tactic. As you all know, Hitler, to take an extreme example, talked about the humiliation of World War I. Viktor Orbán in Hungary today talks about the loss of Greater Hungary in Trianon. He's still talking about World War I. Putin harkens back to the Soviet Empire. So this idea that in the past we were great, and then liberalism humiliated us, the idea that we weren't supposed to talk about our nation as exceptional, humiliated us. So we need to think about that. In our country, when you think of the normalcy of fascist ideology, think of American exceptionalism. Think of how every politician from both parties, for generation after generation, has been talking about American exceptionalism. That's very dangerous in my view. That's consistent with my patriotism to my country. So the mythic past is the first strategy. You harken back to a mythic past and connect people's feelings of anxiety for nostalgia for a past that never was. Method 2, propaganda. I treat propaganda as a political ideal wielded against itself. So suppose, here's a purely fictional case, suppose someone were to say, look, there's a problem with free speech in universities. We must police universities and monitor them to see if they're adequately representing all viewpoints. That would be weird, right? Because to police free speech, to make sure there's free speech isn't police, you're going to police speech. That's using free speech to undermine free speech. So this is characteristic of the fascist inversion. When you find Marine Le Pen talking about how French freedom requires restricting Muslim practices of worship. Freedom is freedom of religion. Freedom is freedom of, what is that about? How can freedom be restriction? When religious freedom is used to curtail as a weapon against sexual freedom, those are methods by which ideals are used to undermine themselves. Freedom is used to undermine freedom. When time and time again, every fascist politician runs an anti-corruption campaign. Vladimir Putin, by some measures the wealthiest man on earth, ran an anti-corruption campaign in 2011. What is meant by anti-corruption then? You could imagine someone here running a campaign, tarring the other candidate as, say, crooked, even though they themselves had a history that was somewhat dubious in that regard. So what is meant by anti-corruption here? The literature on Nazism talks about this, how people think of the Nazis as sort of these pure devoted anti-Semites. So really most of them were just crooks and thieves seeking to rob Jewish art and property. Anti-corruption here means something like the wrong people are in charge. So, chapter 3, anti-intellectualism. The idea, whenever national socialism is a very extreme example, and I do not want to say we don't face that. But when fascism threatens, the universities, the media are attacked. The idea is, if you think about the protocols of the Elders of Zion, the vicious anti-Semitic conspiracy theory that found a home here as well when Henry Ford distributed 500,000 copies. The idea that National Socialists used this as a way to discredit the press. They said, according to this anti-Semitic, according to the protocols, the Jews controlled all the major cultural institutions, like the press and the political institutions and the universities. And you could tell that the Jews controlled the press because the press didn't report that the Jews controlled the press. That's how it works, right? So we saw something similar in Poland, in the Smolensk disaster, where they discredited the media. I won't go into that, but we saw it in our own case. The very first article I published in the New York Times was about birtherism. Mr. Trump, in like 2011 or 2012, has an interview with Fox where he says you can tell CNN is controlled by Obama because they do not report that on birtherism, and they don't report that Obama is So the idea is you have these conspiracy theories, and you say you can tell the conspiracy theories are true because the media doesn't report on the conspiracy theories. And so then you say the universities are dens of leftism, cultural Marxism, and gender ideology. That's what's happening all over right now. And you discredit the universities. You say, and then you try to discredit the universities, the press, by saying that they don't represent the extreme far-right viewpoints of the conspiracy theories. And this leads us to the fourth tactic, unreality. The conspiracy theories that are at the basis for a lot of this, that are meant to unglue you from the truth, to undermine the truth. What you do is you get the mainstream media, you get them into the public discourse, and conspiracy theories can operate like viruses apostatically. They undermine your grip on truth, even by suggesting. So there's an experiment that shows the power of even mentioning that. So they take a group of people, they bring them to a room, and they ask them a hypothetical question. They say, if you were to find out that chocolate cake was as healthy as salad, would it make you eat more chocolate cake? And then they go to another room, and in between they're presented with a tray, and they're told to pick up a snack, and there's chocolate cake and salad. The people who are not asked that hypothetical question, 25% pick the chocolate cake. If you're just asked the hypothetical question, 44% pick the chocolate cake. If you're told to think about the hypothetical question deeply, 66% should pick the chocolate cake. And not a single person, when in the second room they're asked, did your choice of the chocolate cake affect the hypothetical question affect your choosing the chocolate cake? Everyone said no, it was just a hypothetical question. So now in the 2000 primary in South Carolina, when John McCain was leading George Bush, there was a push poll where they called people and they asked them, if you were to find out that McCain had an illegitimate black child, would this make you more or less likely to vote for McCain? So when you get possibilities even mentioned in the public square, if you get them into the discourse, they function like weird pills. People will report that it hasn't affected me, but it does affect them. And so I talk in this chapter on unreality about RT, previously Russia Today. RT's motto is question more. And RT functions in a very interesting way, because RT has a lot of good programming. It's always had a lot of good programming. And then there's a lot of just zany programming, like Nazis, Stalinists, it has everything. So what is its function? Well, the function of RT is to destabilize your grip on reality. So by getting the mainstream press to consider all sorts of weird possibilities, our grip on reality is destabilized. And when our grip on reality is destabilized, then, you know, it doesn't matter anymore. It's just the person it's just our team then from then on. And unreality, you know, it works even better if you can argue that the system is corrupt. If you can argue that the system is corrupt, and obviously in our own country, you know, we've seen the system legitimately fail. And those are extremely dangerous times. There's an experiment by some psychologists at MIT called, the paper is called the authenticity of the lying, the genuine authenticity of the lying demagogues. What they do is they show that if people think that the game is rigged, that a game is just not fair, the person who openly lies and cheats is the person who they think is the real honest one. So, you know, this means that in our liberal democracy, we have to make sure that we don't do the financial crisis again, and we don't do the Iraq war again. Because when people think the system is corrupt, they actually gravitate towards the person who openly lies. So unreality. Chapter 5 is hierarchy. Democracy is based on an ethic of equality. In fascist ideology, hierarchy is what matters. It's about struggle. Certain groups have established themselves as better than other groups. So at the very basic human hierarchy is a gender hierarchy. Men over women. That's why in this kind of politics, transgender women are such a threat, because they're choosing to be women, as Julia Serrano has pointed out in her book, Whipping Girl. So hierarchy. And the nation, the dominant group, is on top, and equality is a myth. And here, in Alexander Stevens' cornerstone speech, we have the Vice President of the Confederacy. He talks about how the cornerstone of our nation, the Confederacy, is the supremacy of the white race, how equality runs against the law of nature. So you find Hitler, too, talking again and again about the law of nature places certain groups over other groups. The law of nature places men over women. That is just how nature works. Nature prefers a hierarchy. And then the idea is that liberalism, the lie, in the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, it's invented by Jews, this idea of equality. Equality is always represented as a sneaky way for dominance. So in the protocols, the Jews are represented as wanting to seize dominance from Christians by promoting this idea of equality. Because nature demands that one group rule, so equality is just a myth. So when people tell you feminists don't want equality, they just want to take over, that too is a line out of the Protocols of Elders of Zion. So the idea, the next chapter, victimhood. So what you find in fascist ideology is this idea that the dominant group is the greatest victims. White people are under attack. White people are threatened. There's something that I wish the media would stop doing, and that's saying, oh, in 2042 the United States will be a majority-minority country. They should really stop doing that, because when you tell, my colleague Jennifer Richardson has shown that she has three different groups. One is of Americans. One is told in 2042 the United States will be a majority white Americans, majority-minority country. Another is told in 2042 the Netherlands will be a majority-minority country. And the third group is told in 2042 the United States will be majority, people over 50, I think. And then they're asked a series of political questions. The group that's told that the United States in 2042 will be a majority-minority country, that group is considerably more right-wing on a whole bunch of questions. They're considerably more, they're for greater immigration controls. Therefore, there's several other things. Interestingly, they're for increased defense spending. So if you prime people with America as a majority-minority country, they become more right-wing, white Americans. They become more right-wing they become more anti-affirmative action, more against immigration, and more for increased defense spending. So if you looked at Mr. Trump's campaign, what was he always doing? They're taking over. Right. So victimhood, the dominant group is a victim of encroaching equality. Okay, I'm gonna wrap up soon. I'm telling that to myself. What are they victims of? They're victims of, well, Jay already mentioned this, they're victims of crime. Some of you here remember Nixon's campaign, when Mr. Trump replicated some of those very same themes when he ran. The idea is that law and order is under threat, and law and order in this ideology doesn't mean what you think it means. Law and order means that the outgroup members, that Muslims, that that non-whites are by their nature threats to law and order. So Jeff Sessions said in 2016, you can tell that Mr. Trump is going to be a law and order president because of his reaction to the Central Park 5 case. And this was a strange comment because the Central Park 5 were entirely innocent. 5 young black men, teenagers, were entirely innocent. So what did Sessions mean by that? Well, one thing it looked like he meant is that young black men, by their very nature, are violations of law and order, just by being young black men. And this is a theme you find everywhere, that the outgroup men are criminals. What kind of crime do they do? They're rapists. Again and again, you find in fascist politics, the outgroup men are rapists. They're threats to your women. So this is why the anti-miscegenation laws in the United States were such a founding effect on the Nuremberg laws. The fear is always of this pollution and corruption. And fascist politics is a politics of pollution and corruption. They're coming for your women. They're monsters. They're beasts. And if you think this is new, just look at our criminal justice system, where we have been doing this under Clinton. We might have Joe Biden as the Democratic nominee, and we have across both parties engaged in this kind of politics directed against young black men for generation after generation. 9% of the world's prison population comes from the 42 million black Americans. So think about it. What is the other time in history when such a small group, such a tiny group, comprised that percentage of the world's prison population? The Holocaust. So, that's our history. That's not Trump. That was there well before Trump. But when you have that background of vilification, that's like a weapon that you're handing someone, a politician, to use. Mr. Trump has taken it up, but so did politicians from both parties. So law and order is the seventh way. Fascist politicians run a law and order campaign. Oh, right, and sexual anxiety. They also, the particularly horrific crime they use is rape. And this is universal. They also run against, they also raise panic about gays, about LGBTQ, because the idea is that LGBTQ, it threatens the authoritarian patriarchal family. And the authoritarian patriarchal family is the model for, as literature and fascism has told us for generations, since Adorno and Wilhelm Reich, the authoritarian family is the model because as I always tell to my 3-year-old, in fascism there's one big daddy. So he doesn't think that's a bad thing, unfortunately. But, so the idea is in an the authoritarian family is this model where this powerful man runs things. And Kanye West, people ignored Kanye West's comments in his discussion with Trump in the White House, but he said something very revealing. He said to the president, when you came, I grew up without a father, and when you came, I felt like you filled something missing in my life. So you get this return to patriarchal values where LGBTQ, where homosexuality is posed as a threat to those values. Chapter 9, Sodom and Gomorrah. You have this politics of the rural versus the urban. The real values come in from the countryside. The cities, that's where the hated members of the out-group live. Chapter 2 of Hitler's book, My Struggle, of Mein Kampf, is called My Time in Vienna. And he talks about how he comes to Vienna and it's foreigners and foreign languages and Jews and more Jews. And again you find this politics of the traditional values in the countryside and the hated groups living in the city. And if you think about what the words inner city suggest to Americans, you can see that politics alive in our country as well. Finally, chapter 10 is called Arbeit macht frei. Arbeit macht frei was emblazoned on the gates of Auschwitz. It means work shall make you free. Because the idea was that Jews were lazy. Educational textbooks in Nazi Germany had pictures of Jewish soft hands. I mean, I will show my soft hands. Jewish soft hands. And the idea was that Jews were lazy. Banking was a method by which Jews used to extract wealth from hard-earned, hard-working German Aryans, non-Jewish Germans. And so Jews should be forced to work for free to give them a workout. That was the idea behind Arbeit macht frei. The chapter is not about Jews, it's about what Americans mean when they call black people lazy. So it is universal that the out-group is supposed to be lazy. It's universal that the out-group is supposed to be criminal, and it's universal that the out-group is supposed to be lazy. And you cure it by forcing them to work. And that's because the ideology of fascism is that it's all about winners, it's all about struggle, and so the group that's lower down the totem pole must be, more problematic, must be lazy, must not have the values that enable them to win in the struggle. And my concern is that we face exactly these 10 features today. And what we should ask is, what are we going to do about it? Thank you.